At this time, I would like to introduce Minnesota head coach, Don Lucia, the first coach joining us in his 15th year with the Gophers, having guided Minnesota to back-to-back national titles in 2002 and 2003 and 4 Frozen Four appearances. Lucia welcomes back 16 letter winners from last year's NCAA tournament squad. Coach, we will begin with an opening statement and then take questions.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here. It almost seems like in many ways it's a new job. It's so fresh this year with entering a new conference, the Big Ten. Even though we've played many of the teams over the years, this is the first time we'll be playing each of the Big Ten members 4 times, and I think it's going to be an exciting year, not only for us, but certainly our fans. I think our guys are excited about it. We're going to be young this year. We're going to have 7 incoming freshmen that we're going to ask to play a pretty significant role. But like every team, it's your veterans are going to have to lead the way. I think Adam Wilcox had a great year in net for us last year with Mike Riley, with Brady Shea, Ben Marshall, Justin Hall, and Jake Prano. We have 5 experienced defensemen I think can certainly play at the Big Ten level, and that should be one of the strengths of our team. Up front, we'll probably have upwards of 5 to 6 freshmen playing on a nightly basis, but we do think some of those guys have some talent and are going to be able to score for us, and that'll be the real key for us is not only how well our freshmen play this year, but also the returning guys. Can they make another step in their development and score some goals, since we did lose a number of outstanding players off our team last year. But we're just excited. We've been on the ice a couple times, and we're ready to go and begin the new season in a new conference.
Thanks, Coach. We'll now take questions.
Jess Myers, 1500 ESPN. Don, you've talked for years about relying on upperclassmen and teams having success with juniors and seniors. How much does it change the dynamic for you having to put that many young players in key roles?
Well, it changes it greatly. I mean, we did lose 5 juniors to the National Hockey League last spring. I think we did know that we were going to lose a few of those. It seems like every year there's 1 or 2 that maybe you don't expect is going to move on, but that's just the way it is nowadays. But when you recruit players, you kind of recruit them expecting them to be put in certain roles, but at the same time you have to grow with some of those players. It was no different than when Bigstead and Holla came in as freshmen, and they were our number 1 and 2 centers, and we had to grow with them. And it paid off in their sophomore and junior year when we were able to win the back-to-back WCHAs and make it to a Frozen Four. So this group, we have to be patient and allow them to grow during the course of the season. But I think we have some guys that can make plays, and we've seen that so far in practice in just our couple days. But now that has to translate into when you're playing 5-on-5 too in real games.
Darren Wolfson from Channel 5, excuse me there. Has all this set in, Don? The Big Ten logo behind you, the trophy, everything that it entails being in the Big Ten?
Has what?
Everything that entails being in the Big Ten now?
Yeah, it is exciting. And, I can go back even as a player, part of a league with Michigan and Michigan State. So, it's not as foreign to me as a coach. And now the teams are back together. And I think we've all felt all along at some point this was going to happen. And I think from our perspective, I think it is exciting. I think from the players' perspective, the newness, the freshness of a new league, it adds that added excitement. I think there's a little trepidation maybe with some of the fans at times, but I do believe that they're going to see that we're going to have at Minnesota the best of both worlds. We're part of the Big Ten. We will continue to play our in-state rivals, a lot of our former rivalries from the WCHA over time, and I think it's going to be a very successful move for us in our program.
Brian Posick, WIBA Radio Badger Sports Network. Don, you mentioned Adam Wilcox. Do you like the young men in front of him in the back end, so to speak?
Well, we're going to have to replace 3 veterans, obviously, with Nate Schmidt signing and Mark Alt and Seth Helgeson, 3 big guys. And so those are 3 of our 6 regulars, but we do have that experience. Justin Hall was one of our defensemen. We went to the Frozen Four 2 years before, and he played forward last year. He'll move back. So we're a little thin with only 7 right now, but as long as we don't get injuries, we think the 7 certainly are all good players and will compete with each other for playing time. And it's as much as figuring out who will play the power play roles and who's going to kill penalties back there and making that the right mix. But a guy like Mike Riley's probably put on 10 pounds and he's gotten stronger, and Ben Marshall had a great year for us last year. And I think we have some ability back there to get the puck out of our own zone, which is a big part of how we play.
Don, Dave Campbell, Associated Press. How, if at all, do you think being in the Big Ten changes that dynamic of making the postseason, trying to get a top seed? Is it going to be tougher?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult. There's no question that not only is beating up on each other within the conference, but the non-conference part of your schedule becomes important, that you're going to have some success there. You're always going to have that end of the year carrot that if you win the tournament, you can get in the NCAA tournament. Also, I just saw just yesterday, I think it came out that there's some tweaks in how the NCAA selection is going to be, and I wasn't aware that was going to happen. So how that ramification works itself out this year, that'll be interesting to see as well. But the bottom line is you're going to have to win games, and I think we all came from very competitive conferences, and even though Penn State, they're a new program, but at the same time they beat Ohio State last year, they beat Michigan State, they beat Wisconsin. And this day and age, it's not like the rest of us have a bunch of seniors. A lot of times those guys depart for the pros, so they're in year 3 in their process. So I think they're going to be very good right from the beginning as well. So it'll be, every game will be a test. It's a fine line between winning and losing, and but I think that's the competition is what makes it great for our players, our coaches, and certainly our fans as well.
Don, Andy Baggett with the Wisconsin State Journal. How long do you think it'll take before we know for sure that this is a good thing, that the realignment of college hockey, the switching of the leagues, the creation of new leagues is going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think at the end of this year, it'll start to become the new norm. And I say that as looking back to the history of being a part of what was the WCHA as a player, the change that happened in 1981 with the split with Michigan State, Notre Dame going to the CCHA, and then adding Northern Michigan, and then adding Mankato and Alaska along the way. It just, after a few years, it just becomes a new norm, and fans start to see the way the conferences are, and all of a sudden they don't know any different. But I think you are seeing like schools together. Even the old WCHA, they're all basically Division II schools, and all of a sudden now, the expectation there is, every team's got a legitimate chance to win that conference too, just like it is in the Big Ten, where every year every team's, has a legitimate chance to win the Big Ten hockey conference. And I think that's what's going to make it fun for the fans. And I think it's almost like it was a scary process, I think, for the fans for the last year or two with this coming, because it was the unknown. But now that it's here, I think everybody starts to say, you know what, I think it will be okay. And at the same time, it maybe opens up new avenues. If somebody's willing to add hockey, there's room in conferences for it to grow. Hopefully the Big Ten can grow, and we can add another team or two. If we could get up to 8 teams, I think it'd be great for our conference. But if somebody else wants to add, there's all of a sudden room in the NCHC. There's room in the WCHA. And who knows? I mean, 5 years from now, there could be some different alignments in conference as well. So I'm not so sure that everything is settled now. I mean, we see it in all sports.
Tyler Mason with Fox Sports North. Don, Kyle Rao was a unanimous preseason watch list for you guys. What are you hoping to see from him this year, especially with some of the guys that you mentioned that you lost last year?
Well, there's a good chance he may play center this year. That was always his natural position, and we put him back at center. We've only been on the ice 2 times for 30 minutes with our guys up till now, but he'll have the puck a little bit more if we move him back to center. So we haven't quite decided yet whether he'll play center or wing. So whether we, keep him at center, Condon at center, gives us a couple older guys rather than having to rely on true freshmen, and especially in those top couple lines positions. So I think we need Kyle to score. He's our leading returning scorer, and we need the puck on his stick as much as we possibly can, and that's one of the reasons why we're really strongly considering moving him back to center so he has more touches.
Don, Andy Baggett, again with the State Journal. Are the odds getting steeper with regards to keeping teams together? You've lost 5 underclassmen this year. The coaches picked to win it. The reason they're picked is because they have 9 seniors and a lot of upperclassmen. Are the odds getting steeper in that that's more difficult to do, keeping teams like that together, veteran teams?
There's no question. I mean, that's part of the issue that we face at the collegiate level. Is how long are you going to have guys? Do you have the fruits of those players that you're working with for a year or 2 or 3, or do they depart right when they're going to get to the point where they're really going to help you? And that's the hard part, the mix in your recruiting. We've recruited some smaller players in hopes that we're going to have them for 4 years, and hopefully that's going to pan out down the line. But when you looked at Quinnipiac last year with a dozen seniors on their team, I don't care whatever sport. I mean, you need to have your juniors and seniors. You still have to have your elite player, and you have to continue to recruit your elite player. But you have to have that mix because it is difficult for an 18, 19-year-old still physically with a 22, 23, or 24-year-old. So if you can recruit that player that's going to be a good college player and you can keep him for 4 years, you're ahead of the game. But at the same time, when you're recruiting somebody at 16, you really don't know what they're going to end up like in 2 or 3 years. I mean, we've recruited players that were not that big, and all of a sudden they grew 2 years and ended up a first-round pick, and they were gone after 1 year. 3 years before, you would have never dreamed that would have happened, but that's just all part of what we face now.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Don, Jess Myers again. You mentioned being a little thin on defense. You've had 1 player leave school early already, and you have a suspension. How is that going to affect your depth on offense in the first month of the season, especially?
I don't think that'll affect it at all. You know what? You have lessons learned, and you have standards for your program, and like I've told our kids many times, and we're not going to lower the standard or a bar for anybody. Their job is to make sure they get above the bar and the Gopher way and how we want to do things. So sometimes there's difficult lessons that kids have to have, and that certainly happened this fall with one of our young men, and in some regards hopefully it'll be the best thing that ever happened to him in the long run is maturity and everything else. But I think we have enough good players that it shouldn't impact us. He's going to have to certainly fight to get back into lineup a month plus when we're playing. But with our incoming freshman, we'll have Connor Riley back, who didn't play all last year. I think he'll help us. It'll take some time after not playing in a game for a year and a half to get back in the groove. But, with Warning and Rao and Condon, that's 3 of our top 6. And I think we have enough depth. I don't think, and I look at our team, we don't have a Nick Bukestad this year. We don't have an Eric Howla. But I think we have the makings of a little bit more offensive depth than what we had a year ago, and I think that's one of the things that's hurt us at the end of last year. We just really weren't getting much of any scoring after 2 lines.
Jason Gonzalez, Star Tribune. What sort of benefits, if any, are you seeing from the new conference? I know recently they announced a pretty extensive TV schedule.
Well, when you look at it, we're going to be on certainly multiple channels, but starting with the Big Ten Network, having that doubleheader on Friday night, I think that's going to be great for college hockey. It's going to be great for our conference, where if you're a fan, that second half of the year, that there's going to be that doubleheader on Friday night. There's an Eastern time game, and then you're going to go right into a Central time game that's either going to be at Minnesota or Wisconsin. So, as a fan, you can really kick back and watch. And also, it's going to spread our brand, the Big Ten brand, for all of our schools across the country and get into so many new markets. And I think that's going to be a real win down the line, too, even for recruiting. That, if you're a parent of a player that maybe you're not in the vicinity, but that even if you can't make it to the game, you'll have the opportunity to watch it on TV, and I think that's a real benefit as well. So, we'll have the best of, I think right now 31 of our games are on TV next year, and I think when it's said and done, we'll probably have 1 or 2 more before TV is finalized. So it's going to be good for our program, and it's going to be good for all the Big Ten teams.